welcome to Longevity Lifestyle Designers. This is Zach here, secretsoflongevity.com. Since it's the new year and there's really no other holidays in the mainstream way of doing things until Valentine's Day, I might be getting a bit ahead of myself here and already thinking ahead of that, but it wasn't actually thinking about Valentine's Day that brought this topic up in my mind. I saw some online conversations between some people and that got me thinking. I didn't actually add into the conversation, but it certainly brought the common things that I think people mistakenly believe about matters of the heart up in my mind. And so I was turning that over and sort of mulling through that and wanted to make this video. So number one thing is that we see without a doubt that the societies and groups of people that have the best bonds between each other having the best longevity. I think this trumps diet, this trumps exercise. This to me is the pinnacle thing that you need to cultivate and bring into your life. Is connections with other people, strong, heart-centered bonds with family, community, and intimate partners in your life. So the major thing about that is that we are a social species, and through interactions that are heart-centered, we learn about ourselves, we grow, and we blossom into people that can serve the world in better ways. So it's a win-win-win situation for everyone involved. Now, what I think a lot of people misunderstand, and this is when it gets into the realm of the idea of love and relationships, meaning intimate relationships, partnerships, and basically where the bounds of love and sex cross. So these matters of the heart can, in most people's eyes, be very painful at some point, whether it's fights that occur in a relationship, or it's, for some people, the end of a relationship if it's not a relationship that lasts their entire lifetime. A lot of people end up going through life accumulating baggage from past relationships, and that weighs down upon their being and affects their future relationships and interactions with people that they aren't even intimately connected with in that sense as well. I think a large amount of these issues rest on the underlying beliefs and personality traits of the people that harbor that baggage. So over time, if you start thinking about things in a certain way, when you have interactions and there's a parting of ways, you're going to be taking on those things. And it's a much more complex issue than I can get to in this video, but I just want to touch on a few key points. And it's really a matter of self-introspection, and it's almost like a spiritual pursuit that is required to work through these things, and it can take a lifetime of work to just maintain equilibrium. And it's well worth it for anyone that has any form of a relationship to maintain a certain part of their own lifestyle and practice as self-introspection, whether it's meditation, prayer, just taking time out to think about things and write in a journal. These sorts of practices help you sort of unwind the inner struggles and issues that come up from being involved with someone. The biggest thing, I think, or most effective tool for that is meditation, but that's just my preference. It could be whatever works for you. The first thing you need to keep in mind, and this is just my opinion, it's not the hard and fast be-all and end-all of all rules, but I'm pretty confident in it, so just hear me out, and you might agree, you might disagree. You can always leave a comment below and let me know your own thoughts about it as well. So the first thing is that love is not an emotion. A lot of people talk about love being an emotion and being in the state of emotional enrapture, or they talk about falling in love like it's something that happens to you without your control and it's spinning out of control. And for sure there's definitely those types of emotions that come up when you are engaging in the start of a relationship for most people, and you get swept up into that swoon, and there's chemicals that are released in the brain like dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin in some cases, and all sorts of other feel-good chemicals. And those chemicals are leaning more towards the side of what we could call lust. Some people might not feel it as sexualized, some people do. And those are perfectly legitimate feelings, but in my opinion, love is something that doesn't differ between different people. So there's not a different type of love that you have for someone you're intimately involved with, as opposed to a type of love you'd have for family, as opposed to a different type of love you had for community. To me, there's just sort of the deepness of how much you can go into that state of love. So for many people, their deepest experiences of love are with their partner in life, or their current relationship that they're involved in. That would make it seem as if the love that they feel for that person is different from the love they might feel for family or for society at large. However, you just have to look at any of the major spiritual teachers or spiritual disciplines and kind of look at their teachings and even practice them perhaps, and you can start to see that the state of mind or state of being of love, and that's what I'm saying love is, it's a state of being, or it's a vibration, is able to be cultivated equally to all people, all things. And it would actually be the same kind of vibration that you'd have with someone you're intimately involved with. The only exception is that you also have those feelings of sexualization with that person, because as nature has built us, we are a species that needs to propagate, and we have these certain inborn evolutionary drives to help propagate the species. I'm not going to get into the specifics of that, but that would describe all those feel-good chemicals and things that come up when you're involved with someone in that way. Another thing that people get into that they perceive as being intense love for someone is when it comes time to part with that person. So whether it's the death of a family member, the death of a friend, or the parting of ways, or death of a lover, there's this feeling of loss for some people, for most people. The intensity varies, and that feeling is often attributed as to show how much you were in love with that person. And in my opinion, we have to, again, look at these things as separate. There's the connection you have, whether with an intimate partner it would be this primal sexual connection, but there's also the friendship connection with an intimate partner. And then you have a friend who might have died or has left your life, and you had a strong connection with them, and there's that sort of certain level of connection that you have that when that ends, you're going to be feeling that lack of in your life, and you're going to miss that. And same with someone, a family member who's died. You could be extremely close with this person, they've moved on, died, or they're out of your life for some reason, and you feel that gap. But your love for that person doesn't have to change, and love is really a vibration, again, that's beyond that. I'm going to maintain this idea that it is not an emotion. And it is actually better for your own personal health if you can grasp that concept and start to integrate it into your belief system and the way your own mental, emotional matrix reacts to things. Because if you have that belief, that understanding, so it's not so much of a belief as an understanding and an experience, you're not going to have as intense of a feeling of loss that is weighing down on your chest, literally, that feeling of being heartbroken, or you feel grief in your chest, literally. That can be described as stuck energy, heaviness. People always talk about it on the heart, so they think heart love. But when we get into these larger spiritual type perspectives of greater consciousness, divine connections with all people and all things and all beings for all time, then we start to let go of these attachments of feeling like we were losing something when that person left our life. Doesn't mean that we don't miss them or do go through a period of loss or grief for X number of days, weeks, months, years. But the sooner you have that state in your mind that all things change and that we are all connected, then it becomes less painful. And it's actually less damaging to your own body and health as a result. So I want to direct people to some concepts that are on another site. It's talked about on many different sites, but this site just sums it up well. And they call it moving from 3D relationships to 4D relationships. So it's 3-dimensional to 4-dimensional relationships. Not going to get into exactly what that means, but it's basically talking about more primal, unconscious relationships to moving to more heart-centered relationships. And this has been something I've always worked on in my life, and progressed to a point where I really feel quite strongly that I can operate from this level and not have a lot of those negative feelings that come up and cause you to hold on to and develop more baggage as you move through life, this is specifically talking more about intimate relationships, and it's much better for your health, believe me, than to carry on holding on to the guilt, the anger, the hate for those past partners. You can really sort of understand a person's level of personal development. Not that you want to judge them as a good or bad person because of it, but it can just show you whether you want to be involved in that person or not by whether or not they're still friends with their ex-partners in their life. So personally, I'm not friends with every single ex, but with many of them I'm on good terms. I can talk to them and they don't have this animosity towards me. There's definitely some that might, and I'd almost say that that's up to them to shift and get to a higher level of understanding of themselves and of myself and the dynamic we once had together. And you don't even necessarily have to ever interact with these people from your past, or even if it was just one person or the person you're currently with. When you start to let go of these lower level feelings, such as the lack of trust, the secrecy, the conditional love. So I've been talking about being in that state of unconditional love with friends, family, community, lovers, etc., which is really something that you give freely to, regardless of who they are and the quality of the person that they are. But conditional love is basically what a lot of people do to manipulate people in their lives into doing what they want them to do. So that's conditional love. That's the need to control, having expectations that are basically based in a negative internal hurt on that person's part. Doesn't mean that you can never have expectations of your partner. Of course, you need to have expectations of them to be a certain type of person. But when we're talking about 40 relationships, we're talking about honesty in all regards and openness, and just accepting the fact that if someone doesn't like who you are or doesn't like one thing about you and you're being honest about it, then that's fine for those two people to separate and move on in life. There's an allowingness of your partners as well as your own baggage and issues that you've come into the connection with, that you're committed to working through and improving upon, and not over-criticizing the person for having those things. Being able to move into a state of absolute trust, and this is a big one for a lot of people, is they have so much baggage from their past that they aren't able to fully ever move into complete trust, and that really is one of the most damaging things in any relationship. And it's really up to the person to become the person who trusts, not the other person to become trustworthy. If you're able to move in that state of being open to trusting that person because you've let go of all your past issues around people who have deceived you in some way, then you're better off. Because a great quote from Lao Tzu is, it's through not trusting that we create a liar. So if you're familiar with concepts like the law of attraction, there is a definite interaction that happens between people on an unconscious level. And when you're constantly have in the back of your mind a slight distrust or even a large distrust of someone you think that they could be doing something in secret that is going to harm you or is against what you're wanting in the relationship, it's more likely that that person's going to be picking up on it, and not going to say that that's going to drive them to do those things, but then that puts a block between you and that person, and again, they're going to pick up on it, and it just creates distance. It doesn't create harmony and bring people together. And then, of course, there's relationships by choice. This touches on the idea of monogamy versus polyamory or other styles of relationships. And as opposed to what most people have as a monogamous relationship, they do it out of fear. They do it out of a need to say, I own this person. There's no way any other person's going to get their attention. I don't want them looking at other people with a sexual eye. I don't want them to be interested in other people. It's only about me. And while you can definitely choose monogamy, and there's nothing wrong with that, Fear-based monogamy is very unhealthy and is, in my opinion, the cause of why so many divorces happen in the world. Because it's like trying to put a collar on someone or a leash and getting control of them in that way. And both partners can be trying to do this to each other, and eventually it just gets so frustrating that they have to part ways and experience other people just out of the sheer frustration of having that unconscious limit put on them. And this again gets into that idea of trust. If you can trust that you and your partner both want a monogamous relationship, and you don't fear that they're going to go off looking for someone else on the side or something like that, then that is healthier for creating conscious monogamy. And the same thing goes with conscious polyamory, is you just have to not have that need to control in there. Not to say that control is bad, but it's the control out of fear that something's going to happen that is outside of what it is you're looking to have happen in the relationship. Let me know what you think about my thoughts on these things in the comments below. Agree or disagree. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed before. Like and favorite the video. And also check out that link below to read more about this idea of 3D versus 4D relationships and sort of elevating ourselves to the state of being able to be like the leaf that has the water droplets that fall on it and then just rolls off. Was the idea of moving through life with less baggage, emotional baggage, mental baggage from your interactions with people. It's rampant in society today that people are operating from this 3D mindset that really gets them in trouble in the long term. And that's when you see a lot of the hate that, and talking about heterosexual men and women, men disliking women, but of course they need them, and women disliking men, hating all men, but they of course need them. These types of people are, it's very sad to see, and that's why I'm making this video, that perhaps someone will see this and be inspired to start moving on this path towards being able to get to a state that these negative interactions that happen in your life just roll off you, and they simply don't affect your long-term connections with future partners. So with that, take care and embrace life without limits.